When are we crossing over from an acute trauma to a post-traumatic stress situation? What's that line? And I think those are the things that we're missing. Leadership understands they have a buy-in to it as well, but how do they deal with it when they have a guy who's got a real problem or a gal that's got a real problem? How do you deal with that?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back, my friends, to the Sit Around the Fire podcast. I am delighted to bring you yet another really fun conversation with a new friend of mine, Mr. Travis McGaha. Travis is the host of the All Clear podcast. It's a podcast dedicated to helping firefighters build stronger bodies, sharpen their minds, and overall just have healthier careers. He has over 15 years of experience in the fire service. This allows him to bring such a deep understanding of the physical, mental, and emotional challenges that firefighters and first responders face throughout their careers. Travis is also an incredible leader within the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer and Wellness Alliance. His mission, what he is working on, is to help advance firefighting health through education, prevention, and really just honest conversation. Like I said, he is on a mission, and he wants to empower firefighters, all first responders, to ignite the fire within and become the most resilient versions of themselves. This was a very impactful conversation with me. I am blessed to have a new friend, and I hope that you get a lot of this conversation and truly enjoy it as much as I did. So welcome to the show, Travis. Okay, awesome. I'm excited for this conversation. Welcome to the show, Travis.
It is great to be here. It's good to see another podcaster face to face. We don't get to talk enough very often.
I know. If there's one thing we're good at, is talking as podcasters.
Oh, sure. And telling lies too, probably. And,
Yeah, right.
Anyway, but yes, no, it's an honor to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you, and let's take a moment. The very first thing that I really like to do is, first off the bat, for people listening today, what's the most important takeaway message that you want them to hear?
Besides visit our podcast page, probably, no, I'm just kidding about that. Probably the most important takeaway is whatever you experience in the fire service, let it shape you. Don't let it define you.
That's good. That's a good one. I like it. Well, with that being said, why don't you give the people an idea of who you are, kind of your background, where you come from, and then what you're doing now in your current role.
Gotcha. So currently I am with the Concord Fire Department in North Carolina. We're outside of Charlotte, but we always like to say we are the cooler CFD. So I work as deputy fire marshal. I do a lot of new construction. Well, that's principally what me and my team do. We're responsible for doing plan reviews, the very unsexy side of firefighting. We do the new construction reviews. Also work as an investigator as well. And I started in the fire service in 2009. It was really after kind of the economy tanked in 2007, 2008. I was in the planning and zoning department, and they pretty much said, you need to find something else to do to justify your existence. And we had a couple of guys that were deployed on the fire side in the fire marshal's office, and one thing led to another. Next thing I know, I'm taking classes and I'm inspecting, and then it became what I absolutely love to do, and I've been doing it since then. And now, I've had the opportunity to see a lot of the different facets of the fire service, particularly when it comes to health and wellness, to see, when you look at it from a different perspective of somebody that's been on the truck the entire time, you start to see different angles. It's like, maybe we can do this a little better. Maybe we can do that a little better. And in 2017, me and another firefighter started a nonprofit, the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer Alliance, and now it's the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer Wellness Alliance. Long story. I'm sure we'll get into that. But that grew out of us realizing that cancer in the fire service was if not the number one killer, right up there with cardiac. We realized that, hey, this is a problem. And this is when nobody would talk about it. Cancer never got mentioned. I went and taught our program at departments before where the chief at the volunteer department was like, I'm going to bed. I ain't got time for this. And he would literally walk off, and then it would be me and one other firefighter sitting there talking. And it has grown into the fact that people know that cancer is a problem. So I think that's the number one victory that we have. Got a long way to go. But along the way, we learned that other things affect your wellness. We started looking at it through the cancer lens, then we realized that mental health is a factor. If your brain's not in the game, you're not going to have a good outcome if you get something like cancer. Well, hey, look, you can do some preventative things. You can wash your gear. You can get, better annual exams. Then we realized how we fuel our bodies, the physical things we do. All of this plays in to how to be a better firefighter. And our mission with the Cancer Wellness Alliance is about build the best firefighter you can. And our podcast, All Clear, grew specifically out of that. I love to talk, as you'll probably find out. And that has been the platform for me to be able to talk about what I've learned and share voices of other people that are knowledgeable in those different disciplines to be able to talk about, every facet of a firefighter's existence, how they can be better.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the podcast side of things is such a cool avenue and blessing to sharing your mission. And when we get those like really unique like inner callings to do stuff, it's just a cool way to get your mission out there. So I'm all in support of All Clear and excited for you, and it's very awesome.
Absolutely. And like I said, it started out, we were just interviewing people that had, a cancer story. We interviewed a lot of people that, they were health experts that talked about, very specific things like your, the brain gut axis, talking about, different things like that. And at the time, I had a gentleman who was doing the podcast with me, who was my co-host. He runs another nonprofit. His name is Eric Stevenson. He is no longer serving as our co-host. He had a lot of other things on his plate. He was much more busy than I was. But he kept bringing up messaging about mental health. And it's like, there's something to this. And then, I began to understand that wellness is more than, like I said, just cancer. And everybody I know in the fire service typically has a story about either a personal experience or an experience of somebody they've worked with that has had some type of difficulty with their mental fitness when it came to, whether it be something they saw on the job. Some people have ideations of self-harm, sadly, and we know the reality of how that affects firefighters long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something the conversation is happening more and more, but like these conversations need to keep happening. I know before we started recording, we had talked about this, but I think this would be valuable to bring up is talking about some of the old stigmas that are still around, still here, or that, like we were speaking to, the hesitancy or resistance from the fire department to talk about mental health or even knowing like what do we even do or say about
Right.
this. But what are your thoughts or maybe even your experience too of what it was like for you when you were online or even now of how does it go if somebody brings up a mental health issue or talks about stuff, or do you feel like it's even a conversation that's being had?
So one of the things I don't like about the fire service is how we tend to be more reactive than proactive. And a good example is going back to cancer. Cancer was the cool thing to talk about for a year or two. Before that, it was cardiac. Then it became mental health. Now I think obesity and, overall firefighter fitness is the thing, and how we shift gears as an industry so fast about what we're worried about. And I think mental health has had its time that people realize, whoa, this is a lot worse than we expected, just like cancer. And there are people that talk about it. I don't think it's got the the limelight on it anymore like these other points have. And I think in time it'll come back around just like everything does. But I think at least where I'm at, I can't speak for all across the country. Um, it's not uncommon to hear someone say, "Man, that was a rough call. I need to talk. Can you got a minute?" And a lot of times we take for granted, man, nobody's talking about mental health, but honestly, we do, but in different ways. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. And
Mhm.
people deal with it in different ways. Some people need a formal debriefing after a really nasty call. Some people just need to sit down at the kitchen table and talk it out with the guys on their crew. And there are different levels of what needs to be done. So I think the conversations are being had, but I think a lot of it has to do with the culture of the area where you're at.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that for sure, depending on what people need and where they are. And I think the we have such a wide range now of ages within the fire service too. I mean, we have
Hmm.
still those guys who are on year 25, 30, who started when it looked way different.
Yep.
And then we have, I mean, at least here in Colorado, a lot of the departments have dropped the age to 18 to apply because
Hmm.
there's just a shortage of people. So now you have somebody 18 fresh out of high school, and you have the other 25-year-old vet. Like there's a huge range of people.
Yeah, and that's even like my staff that I work with. I've got one who is about 10 years younger than me. Then I've got one that's about probably 20 years older than me. And it's really interesting when I have, something that I need to present about, hey, this is something we got to change how we're operating, whatever. I have to present it one specific way to my older, retired veteran who's come back part time, as compared to how I present it to my younger guy. Same information, but I've got to learn how to balance it out for each of them. And I think mental health is very much the same way. I think different people have different capacities for dealing with bad stuff. I'm just going to use that term. I like we were talking before we started recording. I think there's a lot of disservice to mental health in the fire service because, it's like a pendulum swinging back and forth. We've come all the way back over here to where it's like, oh man, if you see anything bad, oh, you're going to be damaged. Well, you can't do that because the nature of the job, whether it be investigating or working the line, whatever the case is, you're going to see people's worst days all the time.
Hmm.
And that takes a toll on you. But part of what I think needs to be taught, particularly to the younger, I'm not going to say younger generations, make me sound like an old coot, but you talk about, you've got to have some mental resilience to go into it. You have to understand that it's not going to be, rainbows and unicorns every day when you go to work. There's going to be really nasty days that you see people that are dying, people that are sick, people that are injured. And you have to prep your mind to a certain degree to be able to handle that. But when you get beyond what you can handle, that's when I think we need to have the more formalized, conversations and debriefings. And heck, if you need help, go get it.
Hmm.
And that's why having people like yourself who are knowledgeable professionals that both understand the mental health aspect as well as what the realities of the job are, it's like gold when we find people like you.
Oh, that's so kind. I think too, part of it when reflect back on this is like there's so much in all of this, but one thing is like the tools, having the tools for mental resiliency and what that actually looks like. Um, how do you think we do like with that or setting people up with it?
I think we have more tools than we know how to use. It's kind of like when you go, you get like at Christmas, you go to Lowe's and you get that tool set that has like a 100 different tools in it. You'll probably only use a quarter of them. The rest of them, you have no idea how to use them or what they're for. And I think
Mhm.
we're kind of in that same situation. I think with a lot of mental health, there's a lot of things we hear buzzwords like um, post-traumatic stress disorder. You hear acute trauma. You hear mental fitness versus mental health. You hear about the suicide that gets thrown around, and you hear all these terms, and each one needs a different way to handle it. Correct me if I'm wrong in that. You're the expert on that one, but we can handle it well with what we understand, but
More resources out there now, and it's getting more and more, which is awesome because you can find something that works for you, but realizing like it is more than just the mental like therapy side of it, but it's also taking care of your body and having connection with others and all these kind of things. It's a full spectrum of taking care of yourself as you are processing traumas that happen, but also just the job that so
Mhm.
much of it for me, I remember too, like, of course, you have some crazy calls, no doubt, but some of the ones that were the hardest for me were just like, an elderly couple and one of the spouses passes away, and now
Yep.
you're sitting with the wife who is like completely devastated after losing her husband of 50 years, 60 years in the middle of the night. I mean, like that kind of stuff is difficult as well. Like it's not always just the gruesome, really traumatic stuff, but the human side of the job is what I think we get that disconnection piece of
Right.
losing our humanity and remembering like it's okay to feel like recognize what she's experiencing, and that doesn't make you weak or less of capable to do the job. It just means you're still connected with your humanity.
How dare you be human and do this job? Yeah, that a lot of
Right.
people feel like you have to be stone faced and you can't be. I don't want to use the word emotional, but you can't be emotionally aware of what people are going through. And I'll give a small snippet of how I figured out the bigger picture, or at least what I think is the bigger picture. And you just touched on it. Working as an investigator, a couple years ago, we had a fatality investigation, and there were a lot of similarities between the victim and a member of my family. So I never saw the person, but I saw the aftermath and the chaos and this investigation, and it's ugly. And when you do a fire investigation, this is what I think a lot of people miss. When you go put out a fire, you're done in a couple hours, you go back to the station, you move on. Well, with this one, we were writing the report. I remember I worked on it for 8 days, and and going over pictures and going over statements and everything like that. And that same week we were having our NFPA physicals. Ironically, it just happened to be that way. And I remember they did my blood draw, and my insulin levels had spiked 400% over what they had been the previous year. And, of course, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I'm dying. What's happening? And
Mm-hmm.
I, I was in a bad spot, and I was overweight. I'm still I still am overweight, but I was really overweight and not happy. And all of this stuff just kind of started falling in on me at one time. And when I was going over the results, We use Selectwell, who work with our podcast a lot. They got an angel that works for them. Her name is Brenda Saperco. She is their lead, I guess, educator. She's also a nurse. And I remember we were going over the results on the phone, and I told her about the fact that, I had all this stressful stuff going on that week that it happened. And she said, "Did you know that the stress that you're going through can affect you physically to the point that yes, it can spike your insulin levels?" I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Hmm.
And then from there, I started digging and looking at all these connections. And through those folks at Select Well, through Brenda and her husband, Dr. Robert Spurko, they are just top of the game when it comes to cardiac health. I know it seems like I'm going like a bunch of different ways, but I swear it all comes back around. Uh, and we started talking, and things like your diet, um, taking care of your mind, all of these things are critical to being a healthy firefighter. And if you're overweight, you're going to be miserable more than likely, and your brain's not going to be in a good place. So you got to get that worked out. And I started talking with the guys at Select Well, and we kind of figured out that if you approach the firefighter as a whole, if you talk about let's take care of the mind, let's take care of the body, watch what you eat, let's do some preventative care. When you do that, your chances for a positive outcome go up exponentially, whether it be your mental health, your physical health, whatever the case is, it goes up exponentially. And we've kind of started putting together the integrative approach to firefighter wellness, and that's exactly what it is. And a huge component of it is exactly what we're talking about today, the mental health, having balance in your life, not being just a firefighter, but you've got to be a dad, you've got to be a husband, you got to be a wife, you got to be a you got to be a grandpa, whatever the case is. You have to
Hmm.
fill those roles. And when you walk away from the fire station, if every shirt in your closet has the name of a fire department on it, you got a problem. You probably need to have a couple flannels in there that you can put on that you can hang the identity up. And
Yes.
and that's what we figured out. And that's kind of what we preach from our side is the fact that you got to have some balance in your life. You don't have to be perfectly balanced, but you got to be looking at every side of it.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't echo that more because I talk about that a lot with people I work with and how we get really unbalanced in that way and then wonder why all the other areas in our life are failing. Why your family's falling apart, your marriage, your finances, like
Hmm.
all the things, like it's all connected and really resonating with this idea that your job, being a firefighter or police or whoever you are, is not your identity. It's not
Right.
the essence of who you are. And remembering that, like, how quickly things can change, and that could
Hmm.
be done tomorrow. And then what? Like, it is the only way I believe to have the healthy career longevity wise is you have to have the balance. You have to walk away.
And that balance isn't, I know people that when I use the word balance, they get really, squirmish about it because they're like, well, I can't have perfect balance. No, you don't have to have perfect balance. Maybe right now you're focused more on your physical issues. Maybe you're overweight and you're trying to lose weight. But a year from now, maybe you're working on your mental fitness. Maybe you're working on your marriage or your finances. We all, as long as we're constantly working on these different aspects of our life, it helps us to be better. And
Mhm.
we always sign off our podcast by saying, "Light your fire within," and that goes back to that whole thing. We in each of us has a fire inside of us that we have to feed it, and we can feed it good stuff or we can feed it garbage. And what happens when you feed old tires and mattresses on a fire, it's
Yeah.
very unclean. But if you go out to a
Mm-hmm.
nice barbecue when you're here in North Carolina, if you're smoking some pork, guess what? It's very, you almost never see the smoke. So
Right.
it's how do you keep that fire inside of you lit, and what are you putting on the fire to keep it moving?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great way to describe it and makes sense. And I think it's just so like if that is my hope is that people hear this. And I've gotten the opportunity to work with a lot of really amazing people where they've made massive shifts in like disassembling this identity piece. And then it's kind of like they get their eyes out of the mud and they realize like, whoa, I've been missing out on all this
Yep,
other goodness in life. Like it changes a lot. It changes so much for people.
absolutely. Now I'm going to put on my turn signal for a minute, make a hard right hand turn in our conversation. The thing that frustrates me about people pulling their heads out of the mud or getting up and looking is attention span. I'm getting ready to get off on a tear here. I apologize, uh, but I did an episode a while back, and because I was getting frustrated because everybody will watch a 2 minute reel or a clip or a TikTok, whatever the kids call it these days. They'll watch that, but yet there's good content like what you're putting out. I like to think my content's pretty decent, but where we spend 30, 45 minutes an hour talking to someone that has knowledge in an area, and
Mhm.
just slow down, listen to it for a minute, and don't be like a goldfish and just looking around at all the different things, but slow down. And that's why podcasting is so powerful, I think, for messaging like this. But the problem is it's not just the old guys that need to be listening to it, that are used to listening to talk radio and long-term stuff. We got to get the younger guys to start listening more than just about 11 minutes, which was my
Right.
last observation. But anyway,
Nice.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll get back on the road now.
No, I mean I think it's all valid for sure and it's important for people to hear this because they might be one of those people that constantly looking for that stimulus and my I have a few interesting theories on it if you're interested.
Sure, go
Uh
ahead.
but thinking about for one, I think it's a huge nervous system response. So part of a lot of the work I do is with the nervous system in the body because that's where like so much of this, I mean, there our books around the body keep score, right? The body is the regulator in how we show up in these things and how we process stuff.
And
So,
we like that dopamine hit for a 2 minute reel.
oh, absolutely. And because our job offers us so much of that dopamine, we get addicted to it, and then we
Hmm.
need that stimulus, that threshold to get higher and higher and higher. So what happens, I mean, is like you're constantly looking for the next external stimulus to get you that like hit essentially. But it's
Right.
also because when people are stuck and I'm saying we too because I've been there. I'm still working through it and I've been out of the job for a couple of years now or offline. But you're so stuck in the sympathetic nervous system that you
Yep.
cannot like you're in that flight state. You're constantly hyper vigilant and looking for all the threats essentially of what's going to
Yep.
happen that you cannot stop. And I call it
Hypervigilance. Yes.
doom zombie scrolling because you're just all over the place. You're
Yep.
looking, and I think that's part of the problem with the lack of focus is like your nervous system, your body doesn't feel safe enough to allow you to even focus, which
Yep.
is so crazy. It's bizarre.
But what blows my mind, I've watched guys operate a pump on the side of the truck, and they got laser focus. They can tell you exactly what's going on. But yet
Hmm.
the minute they walk away from that, their phone's right there, and you can't carry on a conversation with them. And at some point, you're going to cross that threshold to where when you don't have focus in life and you need focus on the fireground, you're not going to have it. And that's a very dangerous mixture. So
Yeah.
yeah, I become an old man when I start talking about social media and stuff like that. I don't like it, but I have to do it, But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
one of those things that We really do need to slow down on that because it's not good for us in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much value that can come from it and so much positive messaging too, but it can also very much be wherever the algorithm takes you. So
Right.
that can also be very dangerous and detrimental. And I always like to think it too, like what you're feeding your mind is going to be absorbed. Like literally your thoughts communicate to your cells. Like
Hmm.
if you're exposing yourself to all of the crap, essentially, like your cells are going to respond to that. So you wonder why we get cancer or cardiac disease or
Yep.
inflammation. All the things is because that's what you're feeding your mind. And so being so aware of that, I think is huge. But
And this is just me personally, and I think a lot of people may share this a similar viewpoint. A lot of the entertainment, a lot of the material that is out there, whether it be on the internet or in movies, just the violence, the immorality, that type of stuff. We may think it doesn't affect me, but on some small level, what goes in front of our eyeballs goes into our brain, goes into our heart, and ultimately goes into our body, and it's going to mess us up if we're not careful.
yeah, absolutely. I noticed that. It's funny you bring it up. A huge shift in being that it was just Halloween season.
Yep.
We always used to watch like marathons of Halloween movies at the firehouse. It was like
Yep.
our thing. And the gore, like violence, it didn't bother me. Like I was fine. It didn't. And then you could go run a call and obviously like blood and guts and everything, it was totally fine. But being out of the job now, offline for a couple of years,
You're
I
more
can't
sensitive.
handle it. I am like, and it's your brain rewiring back
Yep.
to like what is considered normal. Like
Hmm.
it's not normal for you to see all of that all the time. It's stress and trauma is too much, too fast, too soon. Like you can't process all of that and on
Right.
the level that we experience it. But yeah, now is like, I can't even like, I don't like it. I can barely handle watching it. It's weird. It weirds me out, but I'm also like, oh, my brain is like going back to normal. It's crazy.
And I think a lot of the reasons we see self-destructive behavior in our industry and in first responders and vets and in general, things like alcoholism and all that, we are so stimulated. We are not stimulated. We're so over processing stuff. We got to slow it down. Hey, I'm gonna drink this and it'll help me sleep better. And well, the self maybe it's gambling, trying to do something to distract our minds from these things. Whatever the vice is, at some point it's going to catch up with you. And I think a lot of times people use those crutches to try to get through when they just need to slow down and try to, like you say, rewire your brain a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's the external stuff is not going to fix what's going on internal. It's just, it's not.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And like I said, some of my dearest friends have dealt with mental fitness issues on different levels. It could be just they had a terrible call, all the way through ones that have, had to go to inpatient care. Some have, they've been doing, oh, all right, cognitive behavior, CBT.
Hmm.
You see, Eric's going to be very unhappy at me because I didn't remember that. That was one of the things he taught me. These different therapies, they don't utilize them. Some do, but we go back to talking about disservice of mental health. Sometimes you'll talk to somebody. Yeah, I've been going to see a therapist for 2 years. Well, how much progress have you made? Well, we've not made any progress. Well, maybe it's time to look at it in a different way. So those are,
Hmm.
yeah, all that stuff that people don't always take time to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, and just being okay with trying different things. That's one of my biggest messages too, is like there's so many different modalities out there now
Hmm.
that don't have to be what you think is traditional
Right.
therapy anymore. That
Exactly.
find something that actually works for you and keep trying. You mentioned a little bit ago about, people not their attention span not being there and
Right.
all of that. And there's a piece of that I think that links to the willingness, like the willingness to be vulnerable and real with yourself about what's going on and
Hmm.
accepting that like there's something that's not okay. Like there's
And it's
something
okay
within
to
me
not
that's
be
not
okay.
okay.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like welcome to the club. Everybody has something.
If we
Like
weren't broken, it wouldn't be fun.
no.
Joking about that. But, one of the things that really helped me personally, is journaling. I don't do it the way I did, but when I was really going through, trying to process the stuff, just writing down, I had a practice where I'd sit down every morning and write out a full page in longhand in my journal, whatever was on my mind. It probably looks like the ravings of a crazy person if you go back and read them. But there was so much stuff, not just at work, but things I was dealing with, people that I grew up with, people that I know in life outside of work. There were so many things that were weighing on me in ways I didn't realize. But when you start
Mhm.
journaling, and if I'm not a doctor, I'm not a mental health specialist, but this is my opinion. It might be valid, I don't know. But when I wrote stuff down, I went back and I started reading it, 2 months, 3 months later. I went back and read the stuff during the days when it was the worst. And it's like, oh, I've mentioned this 4 days in a row. Maybe
Mm.
that was something that was really on my mind. And then, I shared some of it with my wife. I shared it with her, and she's like, "Really? That's how you felt?" Yes, it was how I felt. And,
Mm.
I didn't use it like a Dear Diary, but I used it as an opportunity to just basically dump out of my head everything that was rattling around in there. And to me, that was a very useful tool. I don't use it every day because I don't feel like I need to, but there are times that I'll go back to it and maybe do it for a couple of days or a week or two. And that
Hmm.
that has been personally one of the more effective tools that I found for self-care.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think, and like we were talking about earlier, it's one of your tools to use that you have that
Right.
works for you, which is great. You brought up something interesting that I think is definitely worth talking about, and one thing that comes up a lot is relationships, and
Right.
particularly wondering like if you were speaking directly to either the firefighter or the spouse or partner who's listening,
Right.
what's what's some advice or wisdom you would offer for them and how to sustain your relationship or how to have harmony and abundance and health within your relationship as this is your career.
So my wife and I have been married for 21 years, and she is the most awesome human when it comes to supporting me when I've dealt with this type of stuff. What I've had to learn is that there is a level that it's okay to share with your family. Maybe you're like my buddy Eric says, share the Disney version, not the Quentin Tarantino cut. Sometimes you have
That's
to
great.
you might have to dial it back a little bit. But
Hmm.
I was very direct with her and my son who's 14. I was very direct with him at the time. This is what I saw. This is how I feel.
Mm.
And if you see me acting strange, please understand why. And that enabled them to be able to support me. Um, that I can't speak enough for. So the advice that I would give to the spouse, to the child, to the people in the lives of a first responder, if they're acting different, ask them, "Hey, you okay?" It doesn't have to be super complicated. Um, if they say, "I don't want to talk about it," it's not because they don't love you. It's not because they don't care about you. It's because they may be protecting you. They may not be at a place where they're ready to let it go yet. And I know that sometimes it's easier to talk about what you've dealt with at work with a person at work who understands exactly what you're talking about, as opposed to trying to strip it down to explain it to someone else outside of that organization or outside of your fire department, whatever the case is. But the biggest thing to maintain that healthy relationship is honesty, but at the same time, you've got to establish some bounds on what you do, how, not what you do, but how you do explain it. And,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a spouse and you see that something's not right, just ask a question. Hey, you okay? And if they say, I don't want to talk about it, okay, cool. Ask again another time. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly, I don't want to talk about it, or you start seeing very distinct changes in personality, that's when it might be time, hey, hon, you need to go talk to somebody. And,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so I don't know if that is the clinical answer, but from my experience, my family is the most important thing in the world to me. When it comes to the people in my life, and I will do anything I can to protect them. But at the same time, I know they've got my back if I have an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that you brought that up of using the people in your life as a gauge for where you're at, because sometimes we don't always see it. And that was my case for sure. Is like I wasn't seeing some of these things that were showing up until, my husband brought it up and was like, "Why are you so cranky?" Or "Why are
Yeah,
you snapping at me?" Like, or why the we often bring like the firehouse culture home with us and realize like, oh, the sarcasm and the jokes don't really translate at home.
that's a little dark. Yeah,
Yeah, right?
I've gotten that a time or two, and you
Yeah.
know, and my son, he's very emotionally aware when it comes to stuff like that because I remember times when he was even 3 or 4, he would be, "Hey, Dad, what's wrong?" And he'd come up and
Mm,
hug me and said, "What?" And he didn't have to do anything, but I knew by him saying that he picked up something was off in how I was reacting. And
yes.
we have to learn to gauge ourselves by them, and at the same time, that they're good sentinels for us when they watch how we're reacting, and if we're getting destructive, then we might need to get some help. And there's nothing wrong with your spouse calling you out because
Mhm.
my wife knows me better than anybody else other than myself, I think. But when she says, "Hey, what's up?" then I know, hey, maybe I should step back and look at it for a minute.
Yes. Yeah, our spouses are our greatest, or partner, whatever it looks like for you,
Yeah.
are our greatest teachers, I think.
Yes.
They're,
Yes.
oh man, that's a
And
gift.
my mom still teaches me stuff too. She was a nurse for like 300 years, and she's like Yoda of nursing. And so she can pick up, she lives not far from me. And, when I go
Hmm.
see her, she'll say, "What's wrong?" And she can pick
Mm,
up on stuff, but, don't ever undervalue those around you.
absolutely. Yeah. They're the ones that are going to be there when the job is not there anymore. So,
Right. Exactly.
mhm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm curious to know too, kind of switching just a little bit, but with your program that you've launched, the integrative approach to everything, like curious to hear like how individuals, departments, and everything have been responding to it. How's been the feedback?
Well, we started in August, so we don't have a lot of feedback yet.
Ah,
But
okay, okay.
But we did teach at the state firefighter conference here in North Carolina in Raleigh back in August. It was well received. I had the privilege of teaching with Dr. Spurko and his wife, Brenda Spurko, that I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
They brought the dietary portion, they brought the physical portion, the things that I'm not smart enough to talk about. I can just repeat what I'm told. But, I talked a lot about the mental health and the life balance. And then we had another gentleman that came in that talked about the value of preventative care. He was a sonographer, and
Mm-hmm.
he was all about, hey, get a head to toe ultrasound. I know that sounds really weird, but in our department we had one of our females. She found out that she had a thyroid precancerous thyroid condition. She had her thyroid adjusted. I don't know if it was a full removal. We had another one that found that she had a uterine issue. We had
Mm-hmm.
another firefighter that found out that he had leaky heart valves. I mean, it's amazing what just that knowledge has helped. But
Wow.
just taking that whole big circle and putting it in front of the chiefs, we haven't had a chance to really teach it to the guys on the line for the most part yet. But we will be teaching in November at one of our local community colleges. A good friend of mine said, "Hey, we're doing a fire college for the weekend. Would you be willing to come and teach it?" And here in North Carolina, if you get in the community college system, that's how you start getting down to the granular level. We
Nice.
are, and so far, everybody that's heard it's like, man, this makes a heck of a lot of sense. And none of
Mhm.
the information will be any surprise to anybody, but it's just when you start seeing that connection between them, that's the power. And we are in the process now of putting together, I guess, a series of videos to talk about it. We've talked about some of these issues on our podcast, and sometimes I'll just get on the camera and ramble about, journaling. It could be any
Mhm.
number of things,
Mhm.
but these are all so many little things. We could teach that class for a full week. We could do a full 40-hour class on it, but I don't think anybody wants to listen to me that much. But, at the end of the day, it's not that you're learning things that are new. The power comes in seeing the connections between all these things we already know.
Yes. Yeah. That's brilliant. And I think it's totally like when I hear you talk about the Chiefs hearing it in the leadership right now, it's like that to me feels perfect because
Hmm.
that's a missing link of a lot of this stuff is at the leadership level and people in leadership not either supporting or knowing that people online do actually support them in
Right.
what they need to do. And so the buy-in from the leadership is ideal, like a must-have, really.
It's funny. We have the fire chief that we have now, Jake Williams. He and I went to high school together, small town,
Yeah.
and he was actually behind me, but he really supports us when it comes to things like mental health, cancer prevention, um, and the other chiefs have really gotten in the game when it comes to let's make sure these guys are getting the absolute best physical they can get. So when we get our NFPA annual physical, man, every year it's chest x-ray, it's an ultrasound of your body. It's something every year and they keep rotating it. And that not only does it help us with the information we gain about our well-being, whether it be mental or physical or whatever the case, but it also sends the message to every one of us, hey, we actually care and this stuff's important to us. The
Hmm.
chief we had before Jake, he actually sits on the board of our nonprofit. And Ray was huge in making sure that, okay, we've figured something out about cancer. Let's see if we can implement it here. And, I don't know if when you were on the line, did you ever have a bucket on the back of your truck that had like soap and things like that? A decon bucket for deconning your gear? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, we had a decon set up.
Do you know where that idea of the 5 gallon decon bucket came from?
Mm-mm.
Concord, North Carolina.
Oh, really?
We had
Nice.
we had a logistics officer who was a cancer. I hate to use the word survivor, but he had overcome cancer. And he said, "Hey, I got an idea." And he really started throwing stuff together that he had laying around in the warehouse. And next thing you know, we had a bucket for less than $100 that
Hmm.
proved that, hey, simple things make a big difference. And I've not seen anybody. Now, I'm not saying somebody else didn't think of that same idea, but when Gerald came up with that idea, we started giving them out and saying, "Hey, do this." And it
Nice.
it was viral before viral was a thing. And a lot of people started doing it. And that was back in probably 2014, 13, 14 that we did
Hmm.
that. And so it's caught on around the country and nobody knows where that stuff comes from. It's all from leadership that have bought into it. And it's not about blowing the horn of the Cancer Alliance or anything like that. But, we tried to have the first cancer decon policy that was actually in our SOGs. If there's anybody before us in the country that did it, please let me know. I'm willing to say, hey, y'all were first, but we had one of
Yeah.
the very first for that respiratory protection and
Hmm.
leadership listened to, I hate to say listen to the science because we know how divisive that became after COVID and all that. But the thing is, the things that we know, they listen and they're like, hey, this is something we probably need to do. And they tried it and it made a difference and away we go.
Wow. No, that's incredible. Do you know by chance? on your physicals, does it look into hormones very much?
Yes, it does. It very much does. I can't speak for the female side because I haven't. I don't know what that panel looks like, but I know on the male side we have the options for having our testosterone levels
Hmm.
measured, and they actually go through. And when you have your I guess your evaluation with the education professionals, they talk about, okay, you're a little low in this, maybe and they help you set up a strategy for how to deal with it. And
Oh,
and
nice.
and what we've learned is that the hormones play huge roles when it comes to cardiac health, when it comes to, how our body processes sugar and our
Hmm.
insulin response and things like there are so many levels to it that we don't even understand. But we do know that hormones play a huge aspect. I know that also affects your mental health as well.
That's one thing I've really like grasped onto to help get the word out and really like light a fire under people to like be aware of where your hormones are because if you're it has 100% effect on your mental health. So
Hmm.
if your testosterone is low, like even estrogen and all kinds of stuff, like it will have a direct impact on your mental health. And so having the full picture of everything that's going on, and I think based on our shift schedules and getting up overnight
Hmm.
and the stress of the job really like escalates the timeline in terms
Yep.
of hormones. So it's
Yep.
even more crucial. Like even if you're 20 something years old, it doesn't matter. Like you need to watch what your hormones are doing and watch the trends. That's the good thing about the consistent checks in the programs. You can see like how you're trending. But then also don't wait. Like don't
Yep.
wait. And if your healthcare provider is not like educated or supporting in it, find another resource because there are lots of people out there now, especially with the hormone side. But
So
it's just something overlooked that I think wish more people knew about it and did something.
this is not me giving a sales pitch, I promise. But those guys at Selectwell, I have learned so much from them, and they have one of the most complete blood panels when it comes to the triglycerides, when it comes to the testosterone. You name it, they can cover it. And not only do they just say, hey, your testosterone's low, but they'll talk to you about why, what are some strategies for dealing with it. Oh, your cholesterol's really high. Okay, this is what the outcomes can be. Here's how we can jump ahead of it. They even go so far as to, if they see genetic markers, they will
Hmm.
actually go a step further and say, okay, now let's get this test done. And when you find, and not saying they're the only game in town that does that, but they're the ones I have the experience with. If you, as a leader in a department, really care about your guys, get them a quality physical. Don't just get a doc in a van that pulls up and, makes you run on a treadmill for 10 minutes. Get somebody that not only knows about the health, but they also understand firefighting. And that's what makes people like that very unique, is
Yeah.
understanding the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and keep working on that mental health side because that's one thing I think that's how you feel about your problem can often be the cause of your problem. So,
Yes.
like, you've got to work on if your life is riddled with stress and anxiety and all of
Hmm.
that is you have to get that mitigated in conjunction with your physical health. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no argument on that. And like I said, to be the best firefighter you can be, you have to take care of your mental fitness beforehand, during, and after. And at the same time, take care of the rest of the stuff in your world, in your universe, and everything will work out.
yes. Well, I just am so excited to get to know more about you and the program you guys are running and the work you're doing out there. And really, that's impacting everybody. But give us an idea or tell the people all of your things. Where can they find you? How can they connect with you? listening, where can they find your podcast?
Okay. All right. So I could go into sales mode now. Awesome. Okay. Our hub of activity is allclearpodcast.com. If you go there, we have all of our past episodes. I highly encourage people over on the right hand side. You can go down. It says join our battalion. And when you join that, it gets you, we don't sell your info. We don't do any of that, but we try to send out information, and worthwhile articles and news that relates to being a better firefighter. We try to put people together, whether it be the folks at Selectwell or folks like you and your podcast have viable, good, vetted information that you can learn from. But allclearpodcast.com is the first place to go. You can subscribe to our podcast there. You can tell us we suck. You can tell us we're awesome, whatever you want to do. We thrive on feedback. We don't get a lot, but we'd love to hear from it.
Nice.
Whatever platform, whether it be, Apple, Google, Spotify, we're all over the place. We do have a YouTube channel because every one of our episodes is both audio and video.
Nice.
And if you want to come see me and my ugly face and all the sketchy faces that we get to come on the podcast, I'm just kidding. They're all awesome. You can just go to YouTube and search All Clear Fire Within, and you'll find us. We do shorts. We do a little bit of everything. But yeah, we're easy to find, but the biggest thing, allclearpodcast.com. We also have our merch store, so you can get one of the really cool. I know none of your people can see it. Let me hold it up here. It's our
nice.
Smells Like Work coffee mugs.
Heck yeah.
We are a nonprofit. 100% of what goes in, just helps keep the pirate ship floating. Nobody does anything for free, but the generosity of folks helps a lot. And
Nice.
I always get excited when I find other podcasters that have good vetted information, and we'll definitely get you folks on there as well and share the info.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to get me one of those cups because I always love a good coffee cup. So.
We also have coffee. I forgot to mention that. We also have the All Clear blend of coffee. Yes, you can click the banner at the top of the page. We don't make a lot off of it, but it is the best coffee you've ever had, I promise.
Okay, nice.
Yep.
I'm going to go get me some because...
Go for it.
I do love coffee. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the fuel of our industry.
Yeah, no joke. Well, Travis, it was so much fun having our conversation today, and I know people are going to get a lot out of this and just hear the message coming through and know that you're there to support. I'm here to support. Nobody is alone. There is resources out there for people. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on. And also thank you for the movement that you're working towards and doing. So
we're all doing the same thing, just in different ways.
Right. Yeah, we care a lot about our people. So
that's it.
I love it. All right. Well, I look forward to chatting again soon, and thank you again so much.
No worries.
And that is it, my friends. Another episode from Sit Around the Fire brought directly to you. We had such a fun conversation, Travis and I, together, and I want you to go check out his podcast, the All Clear Podcast. He's got an amazing lineup of guests and episodes just waiting for you. So don't miss out, and make sure you are liked, subscribed, interacting with us here at Sit Around the Fire. We appreciate you so much. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with us again today. We look forward to seeing you again so soon.